Welcome, everyone, to a very special episode of the Sid Ammar Show. If you haven't already, make sure you check my previous episodes available on YouTube, Spotify, and Apple Podcast. My YouTube channel is at Sid Ammar 316, so make sure you subscribe to stay updated with the latest episodes. This is also my handle on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram, so make sure you follow me. Today, I have a very special show titled A Brief History of Lebanon. I call it brief, and it's very brief because in no way would I be able to cover, or would I know enough to cover, the entirety of Lebanon's rich history. And also remember that Lebanon is part of a much wider region. However, I hope that this episode can serve as an inspiration to the younger Western Lebanese population and encourage them to remain connected with their ancestral origins and informed about their history. Also, in no way am I taking any side by anything I say in this presentation, so make sure you view this purely from a historical lens. This is basically a PowerPoint presentation, and I decided to release it in honor of the first ever Lebanese Heritage Month here in Canada. So without further ado, you should now see the presentation on the full screen. So a major purpose behind this is to assert and celebrate Lebanon's unity and independence. As a Canadian-born individual of Lebanese descent, it is my dream to see Lebanon thriving and prosperous with no malignant foreign influences and peaceful relations with all the neighboring states. So, since 1943, Lebanon has been known as the Republic of Lebanon. It's located in Western Asia, surrounded by Syria and Israel, Palestine, and then the Mediterranean Sea to the west. The official language is Arabic, and the area is 10,452 square kilometers. This is a magic number. Every Lebanese is proud to memorize this fact, probably because our country is so small, thus it takes on a greater meaning. The population of the country is roughly 6 million people, and Lebanon is known for its rich history and religious diversity. It's important to note that Lebanon does have a large and diverse religious landscape. There are 18 officially recognized religious groups in Lebanon, and they're generally separated into 5 Muslim groups: the Shia, Sunni, Druze, Alawi, and Ismaili, as well as 12 Christian groups: the Maronite Christians, the Greek Orthodox, Greek Catholic, Armenian Orthodox, Syriac Orthodox, Syriac Catholic, Assyrian, Chaldean, Copts, Evangelical Protestants, and Roman Catholics. That's a total of 17. Jews are also recognized, making it a total of 18 recognized groups in Lebanon. According to archaeologists, there is evidence of communities living on the shore of the Mediterranean Sea over 7,000 years ago. Here's one example. As you can see, a modern-day picture of Byblos. Byblos is just one example, is one of the oldest continuously inhabited cities in the world, being part of numerous civilizations dating back to 5000 BC. Byblos is registered as a UN World Heritage Site under UNESCO, which is the United Nations Educational, Scientific, and Cultural Organization. Lebanon was once part of northern Canaan, or Canaan, the biblical civilization from which the Phoenicians descended. And you can see here on the screen on the left-hand side, you see the borders of Canaan as according to the biblical boundaries. So red border is according to the book of Numbers, and the blue is according to Ezekiel. And on the right-hand side, you see the Phoenician territory. And keep in mind that this is not the entire area of Phoenicia, as of course the territory would expand and shrink over time. The Phoenician civilization is credited with the invention of the oldest verified alphabet, from which the Latin and Greek alphabets are inspired. The land which we call Lebanon was once the domain of Cyrus the Great, as Phoenician cities were incorporated into the Persian Empire in 539 BC. Here you can see a statue or a bust of Cyrus the Great on the left-hand side. Thereafter, they were incorporated into the empire of Alexander the Great in 332 BC, and here you see a depiction on the right-hand side of Alexander the Great. In 64 BC, the Romans annexed the entire Syrian region into the Roman Republic. So here you can see the Roman temple ruins at the Baalbek temple complex. Baalbek was once known as Heliopolis, which is Greek for Sun City. On the right-hand side here, you see the temple of Bacchus, who is also known as Dionysus, the god of winemaking, amongst other things. In the middle, you see the 6 pillars of the temple of Jupiter, the Roman god of sky and thunder and king of the gods in ancient Roman religion and mythology. The Romans believed that Jupiter was the equivalent of the Greek Zeus. So the Greeks called him Zeus and the Romans called him Jupiter. What you see on the left-hand side area it's called the Great Court. So Baalbek is also registered as a World Heritage Site. The Romans would eventually split the region into 2 imperial provinces, followed by further divisions later on. In searching for maps, it was somewhat difficult to find exact boundaries, but this will give you an approximate idea. So the word C-O-E-L-E here is actually pronounced kol in Aramaic and in Arabic. It means all. So it means all. And it means all of Syria, or all of Syria except Phoenicia. And the word kol also means hollow in Koine Greek, with the idea that it refers to the hollow Abqa Valley area, which you can see right here where my mouse is, between Mount Lebanon and the modern Syrian Lebanese border. Regardless, the idea here is that the Romans would split the region into multiple areas. And on the left-hand side, you would see further divisions later on. Syria, Phoenicia proper, Phoenicia Lebanensis, Arabia, Palestina, etc., etc., etc. Now, the Roman Empire would eventually adopt Christianity as a state religion in the 4th century. And thus, as Christianity is spreading and expanding, present-day Lebanon and the surrounding region would eventually become a major center of Christianity in the Roman Empire. So in the 4th and 5th century, a figure by the name of Maroon became the founder of a tradition now known as the Maronite Church, centered in Lebanon. And here's a depiction of Maroon. You had Roman-Persian wars, where the Sassanid Persians briefly occupied Lebanon for about 10 years, from 619 to 629. And you can see on the map here in yellow the outline of the Persian Empire at one point, the Sassanid dynasty. You would have the Eastern Roman Empire, or the Byzantine Empire, here in purple. Lebanon is approximately right here where you see the mouse. And then later on in the 7th century, with the growth and expansion of Islam, Syria would fall and the Byzantine Empire would be replaced. We fast forward to the 11th century. The Druze sect would emerge in Egypt and establish a significant presence in Lebanon. Also in the 11th century, after the fall of Roman Anatolia, which is basically modern Turkey, to the Muslim Turks, the Byzantines requested the assistance of the Pope in Rome. As a result, the Crusades were launched to reclaim lost territory in the Eastern Mediterranean, reestablishing control for 200 years before falling to the Mamluks. The Mamluks would then rule for about 250 years, from 1250 onwards, and eventually fall to the Ottoman Empire, who then ruled Lebanon for another 400 years, from 1516 to 1918. And here you can see the flags of the Mamluk and the flag of the Ottoman Empire. So you can see the region where Lebanon is situated as largely being under one empire or another historically up until the 20th century. So this brings us into the 20th century. World War I and World War II had powerful effects on the region that we continue to feel the ramifications of in the modern day. Between 1915 and 1919, it's estimated that 100,000 to 200,000 Lebanese died of starvation due to the First World War. Here you can see some images. Here's a man and some children. Here's a family. It's called the Great Famine of Mount Lebanon. Many younger Lebanese today are probably not aware of many of these events. In 1920, the French mandate was established. France would control Lebanon and Syria, while Palestine, Transjordan, and Iraq would fall under British authority or the British mandate. Here you can see on the left-hand side the mandate for Syria and Lebanon. This is the French mandate. As you can see, it was split into multiple areas. Here's modern Lebanon. They called it Greater Lebanon. And then you have the state of Damascus, and you actually had the creation of an Alawite state, Alawi state, and you had the creation of a Jabal al-Druz state as well. Okay, so these were all short-lived. And then on the right-hand side, you see the British mandate. You have the British taking over control of Palestine, as well as the Emirate of Transjordan, and to the right-hand side here, to the east, you have the British mandate for Mesopotamia, which is basically Iraq. So we can see from the Canaanites to the Phoenicians to the Crusades to the Ottoman Empire, Lebanon has always been a place where legends are made and legendary stories are told. Every time we fall down, we rise up greater than ever before, reasserting ourselves towards unity. Lebanon today has both a strong Christian and Islamic presence. Churches and mosques peacefully coexist side by side, showcasing Lebanon's diversity and unity at the same time. Here on the right-hand side is the St. George Maronite Cathedral in Beirut, built in 1894. On the left-hand side, directly beside it, is the Mohammed Al-Amin Mosque, built in 2008. In 1926, France formed the Lebanese Republic. The Lebanese then pressured the French to recognize the independence of Lebanon in 1941. So in 1943, elections were held and a new Lebanese government was formed. In an effort to assert our independence, the Lebanese government, led by a Christian president and a Muslim prime minister, unilaterally abolished the French mandate in an awesome showcase of determination and unity. So how did the French react? The French reacted by imprisoning the new government in the Rashaya citadel, what you see here in the middle. After national and international pressure, the French finally relented and released the prisoners on November 22nd, 1943. Hence, this day would be known as Lebanon Independence Day. This is what we celebrate every November. The Allies, however, would go on to occupy Lebanon until the end of World War II. It's important to note that there would be an unwritten agreement established at this time known as the 1943 National Pact. This required that the president be a Maronite Christian, the prime minister a Sunni Muslim, the speaker of the parliament a Shia Muslim, and the deputy speaker and deputy prime minister a Greek Orthodox Christian. The region, of course, would then go on to witness the Arab-Israeli conflict from 1948 onwards, where 100,000 Palestinian refugees fled to Lebanon, numbering about 450,000 refugees today. Lebanon would go on to witness internal strife, civil war, and more foreign occupation in the 1975 to 1990 Lebanese Civil War, with the Syrian and Israeli armies also entering Lebanon. The Americans also entered Lebanon as well. So a total of 150,000 people were killed and 200,000 wounded during this civil war. Here you can see some images. This is Martyr Square in Beirut. You can see the ruined building right behind it. This is the USS New Jersey, a United States Navy vessel that was shooting into Lebanon, bombing the coast. This ship served in, it's a famous ship. It served in World War II and in the Korean War. Here you have the aftermath of a bombing of the U.S. Marine Corps building in Beirut. Here on the lower right, you see a bombed out stadium. In the middle here, you see Beirut, and this is the famous Green Line that separated West Beirut and East Beirut. West Beirut was under Muslim control, while East Beirut was under Christian control. On the upper right-hand side, you see the gun-riddled Holiday Inn. So this building was only in operation for 1 year at the beginning of the Lebanese Civil War, and then it was then used subsequently as a battleground, and it remains in this condition to this very day. There has been no agreement as to what to do with it yet. Thus, it's now under the control of the Lebanese army, so it's a no-go zone. The war would culminate in the Ta'if Accords of 1989. These accords identified the abolition of political sectarianism as a national priority and demonstrated a recognition of harmonious religious diversity by equalizing Christian and Muslim representation in the parliament at 64 seats each, as well as the cabinet being divided equally between the two groups. On May 25, 2000, the Lebanese witnessed the Israeli withdrawal from Lebanon, and they refer to it as Liberation Day, May 25, 2000. Moving into the early 2000s, we would witness former Prime Minister Rafiq al-Hariri's efforts to rebuild Lebanon. His assassination would serve as the trigger of the 2005 Cedar Revolution and the Syrian withdrawal from Lebanon in April of 2005. Keep in mind that the term Cedar Revolution was a term not coined by the Lebanese. Rather, it was coined by the U.S. Undersecretary of State at that time. You would then have the Lebanon-Israeli War in 2006, followed by the 2011 Syrian conflict, which resulted in approximately 1.5 million Syrian refugees in Lebanon. So we would have roughly 2 million refugees in total in our tiny country of Lebanon. The Lebanese people would rise up again in October of 2019 with massive civil demonstrations erupting over planned taxes on commodity products such as gasoline and even WhatsApp, if you can believe it. Of course, there was the unfortunate August 2020 explosion at the port of Beirut. This was due to storing ammonium nitrate in a warehouse without proper safety measures for the previous 6 years. This material had been originally confiscated by Lebanon from an abandoned general cargo ship. This event further contributed to the ongoing protests in Lebanon. The explosion was considered as one of the most powerful, artificial, non-nuclear explosions in history. It was felt in the entire region. In this picture here on the left-hand side, you can see the destroyed grain silos. On the right-hand side here, this is a crater in the ground that's been subsequently flooded. So as you've seen and heard, Lebanon has gone through hell. According to a professor in applied economics at Johns Hopkins, Lebanon's inflation rate soared over 50% for 30 consecutive days. According to the UN, more than 80% of the Lebanese population is now considered poor, a mind-boggling statistic. Ask yourself, my fellow Lebanese, is this acceptable? So where do we go next? This takes me to some suggestions that I came up with, and I'm sure many others have thought of this as well. Lebanon's economic woes are a major roadblock to an acceptable standard of living. Major economic reform is needed in order to prevent the brain drain of Lebanese professionals to foreign countries. encouraging foreign-born Lebanese to maintain a strong identity and connection with Lebanon, as well as educating them as to the importance of vital services registration and consular services. So the first part of this, encouraging foreign-born Lebanese to maintain a strong identity and connection with Lebanon. Hopefully, this small presentation would help in serving that purpose. Modernizing Lebanon's government infrastructure and services up to modern international standards of developed Western states. That's a priority. This includes developing electronic registration records with ease of access and delivery, upgrading critical infrastructure, modernizing the road system, implementation of safety regulations, improved waste and sanitization services, etc. An emphasis of respect for the rule of law and the necessity of Lebanon to establish lasting peace and economic ties with neighboring states. Foreign-born Lebanese do not want to be trapped in war zones, of course, upon visiting Lebanon. So those were just some of my thoughts. Please feel free to add more. I forgot to mention I'm in full gear. So I'm rocking the Lebanon tie today. In closing, thank you to everyone who made the time to check this out. And I do hope you see this as an educational tool to provide a small, brief introduction into the general history of Lebanon, from Lebanon's ancient history to the modern day. Please leave any comments about anything I mentioned or suggestions you may have in the comments section below, or feel free to reach out to me. Thank you and take care.